Well, we've got Lisa Moore here from Success Tangent Business Consulting. How are you doing today?
Great, great. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, it's great to have you on the show today. Now, can you just describe to us what your company, Success Tangent Business Consulting, helps people with, really?
Sure. Yeah, we're a boutique consulting company and we specialize in training and education
Hmm.
components and modules around growth mindset training, or everything that we do is viewed through the lens of growth mindset. We also do coaching in that space as well. So we take environments, especially, let's say a work environment where it's kind of cutthroat. There's a lot of competition going on. Everybody's being ranked and evaluated by all these success outcomes.
Yeah.
And we help them shift their focus to the process to where the employee is actually getting credit for the work that they're doing. It's not fair if you're constantly being evaluated against other people and you've gone from, say, 40 to 80% in one time frame, and somebody else is sitting up at 95% and you're not getting any credit because you're only at 80%. So we try to help businesses and individuals both shift that focus to the process and kind of learn from your mistakes, learn from the processes, establish guidelines and checklists and actionable items that you can do so that you're a better version of yourself the next time or tomorrow than you were today. With
Yeah.
the goal of improving the process, you improve the outcome.
Yeah. And it being a boutique business, is that as in a kind of fashion shop, or is boutique a broader word than we
Oh,
would assume?
yeah, no, it's just meaning it's a highly specialized kind of a niche area, if you will.
Ah.
Yes, no fashion involved. You can look however you want.
Yeah, definitely. And growth mindsets is an interesting thing because I would guess that most people would naturally not really have one. Most people are probably quite pessimistic, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And society drives us to the opposite of growth mindset, which is called fixed mindset,
Yeah.
by always ranking you and evaluating you and labeling you by outcomes or performance things that you've done, but you're not really getting any credit for the effort or from learning from your mistakes and making those improvements. And if you can shift your mindset or your focus to the process itself and say, hey, what am I doing really well? Because I want to keep
Yeah.
doing it, right? And then what can I improve so that next time I can, have a higher chance of success or improve my score in some way? And sometimes that means you just need more practice. And
Mm.
other times you have to reevaluate your strategy because all effort is not equal. You can be standing, running in place, but getting nowhere.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you have to kind of say, hey, is this approach really working? Or do I need to totally reassess? And then once you kind of get those things dialed in, then you can formulate a plan. So the next time you do something, you're more successful. And if you just keep doing that over and over again, you can be limitless.
Mm.
Nobody can tell you, hey, you can't do this. You say, sure, I can. I'll just keep improving a little bit at a time.
Yeah, definitely. And is it easy to change your mindset to a growth mindset, or are you just kind of born with it and stick like that for the rest of your life?
I think it depends kind of on the environment that you're raised in.
Mm.
Some people are very focused on people having inborn talents, or they'll say, well, they're just not a math person, or this person's not a music person, or, this person's just not gifted in that area. That's the opposite of growth mindset because it assumes that you get what you get when you're born and you can't develop it. You can't make it any better over your lifetime. You just kind of like stuck with whatever you get and you have to work with it. So if you can kind of get people out of that mindset and that framework, which again, society drills it into us, in school, we're expected to make, this particular grade in this course,
Mm.
that's our outcome, and parents do it to their kids. We're kind of very focused that way. But if we can kind of step back and look at it and say, you know what, with enough hard work and effort and learning from your mistakes and enough time, just depending on where you started, you can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can achieve whatever you want. You can totally develop those skills and abilities. And if we can explain to people from a neuroscience perspective on, hey, this is what's going on in your brain. You're making these new neural connections every time you're learning something, and you're actually getting better at it each time you do it, then yes, you can develop these skills and abilities in these trainings. But for some people, it's a little bit easier to do because they're more aware of their thoughts and the way that they're thinking about it. Whereas other people, they're just so automatic, they just reflect back afterwards. And so for those people, it's a little bit harder because you have to kind of get them in the moment, in the present, thinking about, hey, when those thoughts come into your head, you have to be able to challenge them and replace them with something positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the other thing as well of just adding yet to the end of something, isn't there? Where you say, like,
Oh, exactly.
I can't do maths yet.
Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to try to get them to think. What can you learn from this experience? Especially since society sets us up for failure right from the beginning. There's already going to be people that are better than you, there's going to be people that are worse than you. And if you're always trying to get to the top and you're in constant competition with everybody else, you're just like on a hamster wheel, just running in circles, feeling like you're getting nowhere. And that's kind of what hustle culture wants us to do. And this is kind of the antidote to that, where you step back and you say, hey, all effort is not equal. I can go 110% and be like a runner running in place all day. I'm getting nowhere. And so that's where you evaluate and you say, okay, what's the best strategy? How can I capitalize on what I'm doing well? And then let's make a plan for what's not working and try to figure out, okay, here's where I'm trying to go. How do I get there? And then just work that plan and keep improving and modifying it. I like to use the illustration of when you're making a paper airplane. You make that paper airplane and you think, okay, I'm going to throw this across the room, and you try it and it doesn't quite work. Well, then how can you change that paper airplane and modify the design to make it go further? And as you're doing those modifications, you're learning, hey, what's making it better and what's making it worse? So even if you're not quite getting it to work, okay, I need to eliminate this as a possibility. Like, don't bend the wings this way because it's going to slow it down. So those failures, if you will, or those lack of successes help propel us forward if we learn from them and use them to help guide our success.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the things in our life that a growth mindset would help with? Is it just career, or could it be happiness in general, maybe?
I would say it could be pretty much everything, from an individual level. Your relationships can benefit from it because instead of, labeling yourself, well, I'm just not good at communication. I mean, how many times have men or women, or in any relationship, if you will, you make those statements, well, you're just terrible at communication. You're just never going to get this. That's a very fixed mindset way of looking at it. So if you apply growth mindset and you say, you know what, I'm not defined by this label. I'm not defined by this outcome, whether it's a personal identity or a professional identity in some way. And then you work on trying to reframe your thinking along the growth mindset. Anybody can benefit from it.
Absolutely. And one thing could be that somebody could change to a growth mindset and then not really see any progress, and then maybe end up back being fixed again.
Yes, I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the misconceptions of growth and fixed mindset is that you're either one or the other. Like that, it's like a personality trait. You're either introverted or extroverted, and it's really not the case. It's a spectrum. You're going to have some areas of your life that you find that, wow, I'm really in the growth mindset space. Like, I'm really good at being that way. And then you're going to find other times that you kind of align yourself more to a fixed mindset. And those are areas where you can say, okay, what's driving that kind of thought process for me that I feel like I have to live within these limits that society's putting me in or that I'm putting myself in, whoever's making that label for you, challenging that and figuring out, okay, how can I move from this fixed mindset space into more of a growth mindset? And you could even have, one day you're really good at it and another day you're not. It's one of those, if you're tired, you may not be functioning as well in a growth mindset space. It's the same as, any other circumstance. If you're tired or run down or stressed out, you'll have kind of a default setting that you revert to.
Yeah.
So it's one of those constant processes of just constantly trying to be aware and moving into that space where you're more open-minded and not defining yourself by your failures.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I guess it takes a lot of work and remembering to have a growth mindset. It's not just like you flick a switch and that's you done forever.
Yes. And, it does sound like a lot of work initially, but it all starts with just being aware of what those conversations are, or the chatterbox in your head, if you will. And then just saying, what my head is telling me, or these voices are telling me that I can't do this because of some label or some box that I'm putting myself in. I'm going to challenge that and I'm going to replace it with, yes, I can do it. I just need to put the effort and the time and the learning into it, because you can't think positive and negative at the same time.
Yeah.
So it just all starts with kind of that process, which the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. And is there necessarily anything wrong with maybe you're absolutely happy with how your life is and you don't really have any goals because your life is already perfect? Is there anything wrong in that situation with having a fixed mindset?
I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with it per se, but I think that you can enjoy a better life and even improve upon that if you kind of open up the idea that, hey, I don't have to be defined by these boundaries.
Yeah.
What can I do if I allow myself to open up my mind to the possibilities of moving outside of these boundaries?
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that you personally help people become more growth mindset type people?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. We use training programs online. We have some on-demand training. We have some focused toward individuals. We have some toward businesses and leaders, managers, that sort of thing. Then we also have coaching, because some people just need to have an objective view. They need somebody to look at it and say, hey, this is maybe what might work a little bit better for you, or just to talk them through that process. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then we also, of course, have blog content to let people kind of read and understand and educate themselves about it as well.
Yeah, that's quite incredible. Can it all be done online as well? Because I guess we're still in a bit of a pandemic, so it's sort of accessible, right?
Yes, it's all accessible online on demand. And we even encourage people who maybe can't afford the programs but would really like to benefit to reach out to us and let us know, because we do have pro bono clients, if you will, and we do take on and try to give back to our neighborhoods and our peer groups and, others around us.
Yeah. And is there maybe a kind of bit of a cycle, I suppose? If you want to have a growth mindset, but you have a fixed one, because you've got a fixed mindset, you just think, I can't get a growth mindset and never switch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's always possible, but like they always say in the psychology realm, you have to want to. Like that's the first thing. You have to want to make a change. You can't force somebody to change if they're not willing to try to step into that space.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the future, how do you think your business is going to grow? Because presumably it will, and presuming you have a growth mindset yourself.
Absolutely. In the future, we kind of see helping businesses, especially with the great Great Resignation that's been going on, where
Oh.
employees are firing their companies and their managers. We see us growing to kind of help fill that space to where we help those businesses and those managers and even individuals kind of reframe their thinking around a more positive way of engaging and interacting with the employees more collaboratively, less judgmentally, to where the employees want to actually work there and not say, you know what, I'm going with this other option that I don't have to deal with you because it's just too much.
Yeah, I heard about the Great Resignation for the first time the other day. I'm not quite sure what it is. From a glance, it sounds completely mad, but is it?
Yeah, it's where the COVID environment has encouraged kind of a bunch of employees to resign based on the way that they're being evaluated, treated, managed in companies. And it seems to be more that the employees are firing their managers instead of the companies. Like they don't
Oh.
like the way that they're being treated and managed. And so there have been these people, especially the younger generation, where, work used to mean something long term. And now they're realizing that, instead of being working at these companies and being treated like this, I'd rather just do nothing, or I'd rather just, work on some project on my own than have to deal with this kind of environment. And I know the COVID environment has really challenged a lot of businesses and the way that they're doing things, because we've had to really shift to this online work model, which I think is, it's hard for everybody,
Yeah.
but especially for the employees. And so this can help shift the culture in the businesses kind of into more of a positive framework to where those employees want to come work there, where they enjoy working there, and the managers are having these positive impacts and this positive interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where are we able to find all your courses and just keep up to date with the company in general?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit our website. It's www.successtangent.com.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on the show today. It's been great chatting with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.